Hello. Right. Let me just get these open and see if people can join us. Getting some inks out. Right. I'm not going to use those. Oh, I got people joining. Excellent. So I shall hold on a minute. Oh, I'm just going to grab my drink while everyone joins us. I knew I'd left something over there. Hello, Julia. Right. Shall we get going? So I'm going to be playing with some new stuff or newer stuff today. I don't really have a plan. Hello, Mand. I just sort of looked at some things I might want to use, so I thought I'll do an art journal page because they'll work well for that. So we'll see what happens. I don't have any major plans. I have some paints and inks on my desk. So impastos that you've seen me use many times before. I'm going to go for a very lighter colours, sort of darker colours, not bright colours today. So I'm going kind of browns, greens, taupes, paler colours, that kind of thing. So there's my impastos you've seen me use lots of times. I've got my Dina Wakley acrylic paints, Hi Ali, again in those kind of paler tones. Let me see if I can hold them upside down. So these, I'll tell you shades as I use them, and I've only managed to get a small amount so far. It's something I forgot to tell you that came in my delivery the other day. So it's the Finnabair liquid acrylics. Okay, so I've got tones in those again that will work with these. They're hard to see in the bottle because they're very concentrated colours, but as we go on we'll see. You saw me use a few of them on the seahorse plaque that I did not so long ago. Right, so we're going to start by prepping my page with some clear gesso. Okay, so that we can get all this stuff on. Over here I've also got, these are the mini archival inks, so it's distress colours in archival formula so that they're permanent and waterproof. Okay, so I'm going to be using those as well. We have a couple of sets, they come in sets of 4. There's some of those on our website as well. Ooh, I definitely did not clean this jar before I shut it. Look at all that right there. Ow. Okay, we'll have to give this one a bit of a clean, won't I? That's quite satisfying getting that off though. Does anyone find that, like peeling things off? Okay, so I'm using Fabrica de Coru clear gesso. Now it is quite a thick one so far as clear gessos go, so you might find that you want to actually pop a bit of water on as well. Sometimes I just spray a bit on as I'm doing, a bit of water on when I put this down. It is super duper thick for a clear gesso, because they're usually very thin. It's quite sticky, so if you are wanting to at the same time to put any rice papers down or tissue papers, you could also use this as an adhesive to do that. So save you an extra step. Don't worry about the pages curling, I'll sort that out in a minute. A lot of people say to spray the back of the page as well will help with the curling, so we'll give that a go in a minute and see. There's more to pop. So let's try it. I guess it just you know, what you're doing to one side, because we've made the front side very heavy now, haven't we? So we'll see as we dry that if that helps a little bit. Oops, I'm a bit tangled down by my feet. Sort that out. There we go. Right, so I'm going to dry that quickly. Yeah, that does seem to work. So all I did was just spray the other side of my page with some water, and that seems to have helped with the curling. Hello Mary. Quite a few people on, that's good. Do say hi if you're popping in, it's nice to know who's here. And it will dry completely clear eventually when it's dry, but I just water it down a little bit, stops these kind of little patches as it's drying. It's purely just, you know, for me, I suppose, because it will dry clear eventually, but I just like to water it a little bit personally with this brand. With Prima brand I don't water, that's the other one that I use. Hi Kasha. So that's my little tip for that one, just a little bit of water with it helps. Okay, so I'm working on craft paper today because I thought that would go nice with the colours that I wanted to use. So I'm going to lay some of those liquid acrylics down first, I think. So liquid acrylics, so I'll read you what it says. Are high quality liquid acrylic paints with amazing vibrant and rich colour and a glossy semi-translucent finish. So they have the gloss like an acrylic does. They are semi-translucent, so you can layer these up and you'll see the different colours underneath, which is different to a regular acrylic, which are usually opaque, so one layer cancels out the other. They are permanent when dry, just like an acrylic. Are perfect for traditional painting techniques and a variety of mixed media techniques such as stamping, jelly printing, creating drips and splatters, and much more. So you can watercolor with these as well. There is a color fluid medium which you can use to add more transparency to your colors and also to mix custom colors. They are good for collage because of their fluid consistency, art journaling and mixed media painting. They can be applied with brushes and work well with fine tip bottles, or if diluted in a water bottle can be sprayed with a dry permanent finish. Okay, so that's a little bit about them. So I'm still quite new to them, I guess. So the first thing is very little, so I'm going to put. Now, I will give a word of warning that mine had ordered these before and mine got damaged in, they got frozen over the bad winter. So they will come liquid, yours, don't worry. This is a bad batch that I'm using up. Whoops, see how some of them, this is normal. These are like thick where they got froze, but I'm still going to use them because they'll still give me some colour. Whoop. So can you see, I don't know if you can see that on my mat very well because it's so dirty, but they're super dark. How dark they look at the minute, that's because they are so pigmented. Once we start putting them down, see even on the craft how bright that is, we can water them down. Okay, so we can move this colour around with our spray. So I just want to get some colour down on my page first. No, nothing, just messing around. No, I'm not painting a masterpiece here. And just remembering, as with everything, when it's the colours are wet, they'll be blendable, just like any regular paint. When you dry and then add some more, you're going to be able to create layers. Okay. So you can see my orange is one of those damaged ones. It's got that funky texture going on. I'm just going to dry a little bit so I can apply layers rather than mixing my colours together. I don't really have a plan for today. I just had this kind of image in my head that it would be vintagey-ish, with some browny tones. So that's about as far as this. So okay, I should say what colours. So the yellow is true yellow. Orange is tiger orange. The green I'm about to use now is avocado green, and there's a brown colour which is umber. Do you always have to clear gesso your pages? That's a good question. So clear gesso is usually much thinner than the regular gessos. So it's great when it comes to art journaling and things like where you want to keep it very flat. So say decoupage or anything like that. So it's not going to add any texture. It's just going to protect the surface. So gesso acts as a barrier on your page. So it stops it soaking through so you don't waste so much. And also so it doesn't seep through, so we're not going to ruin any other pages in the book. And also helps the colours appear more vibrant, because instead of soaking into the paper and you know, the paper, because this is a brown paper as well, they just sit on the top, so you'll get a more true colour from them. Clear gesso, so you don't always have to use clear gesso, you could use white or black. As I said, I use Prima brands, so these are heavy gesso. So what that means, they're thicker, they have a body, so they have texture. So if you're not wanting texture, clear gesso will be better. And also clear gesso, because it's not pigmented, it's clear as it says. So I'm not going to alter the colour of my paper. So I purposely wanted to work on craft. If I was to use white gesso, that kind of takes the point away of working on craft, because now my page is going to be white. So if you've got pattern papers as well, it's going to keep the patterned paper, the pretty pictures on your paper, but still protect your paper from any mediums. So that's why we use gesso. So it's just about deciding on what mediums you're going to be using. You know, what paper. If I was to use white paper, it's not so important that I use clear gesso. I could use white gesso. Black gesso, if we were using metallics, might be more suitable. So it's just deciding on your project, really. Okay, so that's those. What's some more? Is umber the... Yeah, umber's this brownie one. I want some more of that on there. It looks like not comparing myself, but it's just reminding me of the sunflowers painting at the moment, all this splodginess. Okay, so I don't know how well you can see, but it gives a... Oh, you can catch that. That's also the gesso as well, but it does have a slight glossy look, the liquid acrylics, just like your normal acrylic paints would do. Okay, so let me just clean my hand. Somehow got that all up my fingernail. Hello, darling. Did I miss anyone else coming in? Oh, that's great. I hope that answered your question. Don't want to then stick the screen somewhere else later. Right, so that's got down a base colour. I'll just give that a quick dry. They do dry very quick, so I probably don't need to really do this much. That's quite bright at the moment, so as I go along I'm going to add more to tone this down. I'll be using my paints as well. I think I'm going to do some stenciling next though, get some texture on my page. So I'm working in a book that is on a spine, so the pages are very close together. There's no wiggle room, you know, we're not on rings, so we can only do so much that adds height. So that's something to consider when you do art journaling. What kind of things are you going to want to add? So is it going to be something that's better in a ring binder where the pages you can remove and add and have more height, or even better on a metal ring system, so you can you know, add as much height as you want? Or are you going to be working with papers and chipboards that are quite thin, and maybe just some stenciling like this? So when you choose a journal to work in, have a think about your kind of style, what you're likely to do, because that's important in what you choose to use. So just off to the side, you can't see it on camera there, I've popped some modelling paste, and I'm going to use something to colour that, because modelling paste is white traditionally. You can get coloured ones, but it usually comes white, so it's pigmented. So I'd like to colour it something else, just off-white, I think. Let's go for burlap impasto paint. So these are great to mix with modelling paste because they're very thick in themselves, so we're not going to water down the paste. Like if I put that liquid acrylic in there, it's going to make my paste very runny. So you can see they're very thick. So I'm going to mix those two together. The paste is white, so it is going to whiten the impasto. But impastos are very pigmented, so we'll still have a very nice strong colour. Okay, so here's the paint colour, and I shall show you the paste in a minute. Okay, so we've still got a nice strong paste colour, and it's still got good body, so it's going to stencil quite well. If you want to get really, really thick, you can use heavy body gel and mix it with the paint. But that is going to give a different feel. It's a gel, not a paste, and it is glossy. So again, thinking about what look you'd like. I will use this stencil, I think, today. This is 13 Arts Tattered Diamonds. All the products I'm using so far, anyway, I'm thinking, you can find in our store at thompsonscraftsupplies.com. Okay, and my next post day will be Wednesday next week. I am catching up on a few orders. I don't know if you've heard me say, but I've had an issue getting my boxes. They seem to have been delayed. So I guess, you know, just the virus, the couriers obviously have a lot to take out. So I'm guessing there's just been a slight delay in that. The other thing with a journal like this is it's on a spine, so as you get to the middle it's rounded, so you need to be careful with stencils. How you hold them is going to be a little bit more awkward towards that spine. And my journal's starting to get quite full, so my pages, you know, when I press down it's not completely flat, so that can be a little bit awkward. So just be careful when you're stenciling. Hold it firmly. So you may, if you're starting out, you might find a kind of journal where you can take the pages out to work on and then put them back in. So something like in a ring binder, that might work better for you. Or just to work on paper, and then maybe you could punch some holes in it and add it to a ring binder, that sort of thing. That might work better for you until you feel confident enough to do something a bit more awkward like this. Okay, so that's some pattern. I don't like odd numbers, so even numbers rather, so I need to add a little bit more somewhere else. Just go up here. Just a touch, just to make my brain happy. And do the same on the other page. Over here, I think. There we go. Right, I shall just clean my stencil. Get everything cleaned off. Just gonna wipe that off as well. Okay. They do dry fairly quick in pastos on their own, so if you wanted to do something like that, like wipe it off, that's fine. Just remember you have a limit time, so get that done straight away. Give my stencil a wipe as well. They are thick paints, and I've mixed in remodeling paste. It's always a good idea to get your stencils cleaned straight after, just so they keep working for you properly. If you start to get build up on there when you're using your palette knife, it's not going to go flat against the stencil, and it won't work properly for you. Right, let's just give that a dry. And the other thing about impastos that's quite unique, not unique, but not normal for an acrylic based paint, is that they have a matte finish. Most acrylics, regular acrylics, will be glossy. So this means that we could colour over the impasto, and we're just going to get a totally different feel. It's going to have a softer feel. You can get a more vintage feel from them. So I've not got perfect stenciling here because I said the page is not flat, but it's given me a nice shape and a good texture, which is what I wanted. And I think perfection is overrated anyway. That's not really what I want. I want something a bit interesting. So I'm more than happy with that. If you've got quite a lot of paint or ink left on your stencil after as well, what you can do is flip the stencil over and get a bit of kitchen roll and wipe over, and you'll get a reverse print on that. That looks quite good. So I want to get this quite dry before I start adding any more mediums, as they're going to mix together and get a bit mucky. Nearly there. I hope you're all having a lovely day. This is my first trialing. So I work another job as well, and I had been working 5 days there, and this is my first week of trialing 4 days a week. So I'm going to see how that works for the bank account and myself mentally, physically and all that. And it means I can give more attention to demos and getting orders out and that sort of thing. So I'm going to see how it works for a month or two and make a decision about that. So that's quite exciting. This side doesn't want to dry very well. Right, we'll be careful around that. I've done it very thick where my page wasn't quite flat. So we need to be careful with that for a little bit. Okay, while that's finishing, I'm going to take the linen colour and I'm going to, just with my finger, these are very much paints that are great for finger painting. I'm just going to work around the edges, lightening and just adding texture. These paints hold texture very well, So finger marks, paint bristle, paintbrush marks, texture tools, they hold that very well. They almost have like a plaster sort of feel to them. They're very chalky feeling. I can't really describe what I mean. If you've got them, you probably know what I'm going on about. But yeah, they've got something really different about them, and they're just one of my favorite things to work with. And you have to have a bit of an open mind when you do this kind of thing. You know, you go through a lot of time where it looks quite ugly and you think, what am I doing here? Like, I really don't know where I'm going with this. But you have to persevere, and the more layers we'll add, it'll start to come together. And remember, this is just the background we're working on. We're going to be adding lots of elements onto the top. And it's just a great thing to do if, especially at the minute, you know, it's really important we look after our minds a lot. It's quite freeing, this sort of style of crafting, you know, especially this painting with the fingers. I guess it harks back to, you know, being children, that kind of thing. Just doing it, no thinking, just playing, being a bit messy. So it's great for that. Good for the mind. Now, we don't want to go too mad with this. We don't want to cover everything that we've done. Okay, so that's enough of that. Oh, no, don't put them in my rubbish bag. I don't want to throw my paint away. Wrong bag. Right, I don't think I want to use that one today. I'm going to go into my Dina wakley paints now. So, quite thick again. Nowhere near as thick as the impastos, but they describe it as a buttery texture, which is exactly how I'd say they are. But again, they do hold texture very well. So these are, again, another one really good for finger painting. Right, so this one I'm going to dip into first is sand. Let me clean my finger off so you see the colour properly. Okay. And I'm going to... So it's a similar tone to the one I just used. The linen is slightly more green on the spectrum. This is more of a brown cream, if that makes sense. And you can see again like how well it takes, like you can see my fingerprint in there. It really does hold texture well. And these are 29mm. Pastos are 75mm, so they're just a bit over a third of the size in pastos. These are $2.99, so great if you wanted to try some out. Great price. And impastos I think are $7.99. So you have to decide. They're obviously much bigger and do different things. Right, this is umber, so this is a brown colour, dark colour, same as the fluid acrylic brown that we put on before. So we're going to tone in those paler colours, blend them in. So I'm trying to create a good texture and a kind of a vintage old feel here. That's what I'm going for. And you'll see why when I bring in my papers and stuff, why I'm trying to get that look. And you don't have to use these paints with finger, just like to say. You can, of course, use them with a paintbrush. Just checking that my charger is on. Hold on a second. Oops. Yes, we are. Sorry, just moved you there. You can use a paintbrush. You could use a palette knife as well. It's quite a nice way to put them on. Sort of slap them on to get nice textures. Okay, let's pick one other colour. Let's go, no, not elephant, that's a grey. Let's have buff. Don't want grey today. So this is more of a white colour. It's not white, it's not pure white, it's like a cream white. That makes sense. It's slightly off-white. It's quite bright, but not quite white. It's got a little bit of a sandy colour in it. We can go, this is drying better now. That's good. So I'm hoping that the texture, you're getting the texture showing up well on camera. I'll lift it up in a minute because I'm nearly done now. Let's move some of that into there. Blend this stenciling in a bit better. Make it more part of the piece. Oops, that was a bit too much. Can knock that back with baby wipes, that's fine. And I'll just get some of that umber again, just to go over the stencil bits now it's a bit drier. So kind of blend that into the rest of our work. So it doesn't look separate. Fab, okay. So, right, at the minute, looks like a great big mess, doesn't it? I like it though. And we might be able to do some stamping maybe later over it. That's another good thing about having a matte paint. It takes stamping well. Right, so let me show you. Okay, so we've got really nice texture. Can you see all the marks in the paint and how it's raised as well? Okay. So let's just first of all get all of this out of the way so we can carry on with our project. And we'll give it a quick dry and then we'll start working with some papers. Take all those away. Lovely. Right, let's give it a quick dry. And again, all of those paints dry pretty quick. Nothing more frustrating than when you've got a paint that takes forever to dry. You just want to get on with your work. Let me have a drink while I do this as well. So as it's drying, you can see the texture's even better now. So you can see, especially in this corner, you see all those little marks and the way that they've layered on top of each other. Okay, so let's have a think now of some papers. So I found this little piece of paper I thought would be nice. I'm pretty sure it's a Tim Holtz paper. I've got some scraps from my 13 Arts travel paper. Okay, so I'm going to use some of those, I think. I've got a piece of cork. I thought that colour would work nice. I've got this is one of the new rice papers we've got in, Vintage Story by AB Studio. I thought these colours would work lovely. And then I've also got this paper, which makes up the new set. This is called Vintage Day, so lots of old papers and coverings. And on the back actually works well as well. It looks like almost like a drawing of a church window or something. So we've got that. And we've got some of the new specialty papers. So we've got what they call tracing papers. So these are no, the other way around. Sorry, these are vellums. And then the transparent foil is your acetate. So it looks white at the minute, but that's because it's against the background. So we can use some of those too. I'm going to start with the rice paper. So rice paper, similar idea to tissue paper, but very, very strong. So I'll show you the back. You'll see it has all these fibres running through it. So if you saw Kash's demo today on the other page with the tissue box, it's quite strong. So you can rip it, but it's not as easy, especially when you've got some of these big fibres. So the best way, and you get a better finish as well, is to take a paintbrush. Let me get a little paintbrush. Let me just move the book out the way for a minute. Okay, take a paintbrush just into some water and just use the paintbrush to basically cut out, if you like, sections that you'd like to use. So this makes it easier to tear, but it also gives you a softer edge when you tear it, rather than having this cut straight, you know, perfect edge you'd get with scissors. And then you just pull along the water. If you've got images that are close together, just be careful doing that. So if I do this, and then I can show you, what you get is this feathering effect along the edge, which helps it blend into your work better. Can you see that, how it's feathered at the edge? It helps it, when you apply that to your work, it helps it blend into your paper or surface better. So we'll just do a couple of sections of this, I think. And this is, even though it's stronger than a tissue paper, it's still fairly delicate. So we wouldn't want to use a great big heavy gel like a 3D gel with this to apply it. We need what you would call either matte medium, soft matte gel, or I've got transparent medium by Fabrique Decru. So it's basically a thin gel that we want, one that's matte, so we can apply other mediums over the top. And it's a very thin but very sticky gel, so it's great for applying thin papers. If you try to stick it on with a thick gel, the chances are that you would probably rip it, because it's just going to be too much. It's going to stick too much to the paper, and you'll probably end up tearing it. Okay, so bring my book back, just watching the cable. Put my phone on charge here. Forgot to charge it, so I've got to leave it on there. Right, we'll start on this page. So we can apply this. We could use that gesso as well. I said it's really sticky, so let me use this while I've got this one out. So if you've got a sticky gesso as well, a lot of the time clear gessos are quite sticky, that would work too. And I like to put some on the back, kind of around the edges mostly. And then, or you can just cover the whole area you're going to stick this onto, whatever works for you. And I like to then also go over the top, so it's kind of sealing the paper, and it makes that just like we did with our background page. It's going to make that nice and matte and ready for any mediums we want to pop on top. And this, because it's so thin, it's great, it'll go over, so where we've got the stenciling, we can really work that in and get that onto the texture showing through of that paint. So it's great to apply over things like chipboard or something, then you'll get the shape of that coming through. Right, so let's get our other pieces. Go over to this side. So I've one there. So if I tried to do this with a regular paper, it's not going to work that great because it would be too thick and too solid to go over that texture of the stenciling. It would just sort of sit on top. Do be careful not to get the paper too wet or press too hard, or like I just did there. You'll start rubbing away the image on your paper and you don't want to do that. Okay, so that's some of that on. We'll just give that a quick dry, and then we'll start building some layers up. So I'm going to use these to create my layers. Oh, what is that? And then I will use some of the images for my focal point. Dear, I've got a stain on the thing. Get that off after. My cup must have been dirty. Right, so let's give that a blast. If anyone has any questions at any point, just pop it in the comments. Don't be frightened. I love like German text, just looks so great on mixed media, really gothic, sort of calligraphy style, really good. Okay, so that's that. Right, so let's have a look at those other bits I've got. So this cork can be die cut. This was actually Kaisercraft one, or you can tear it like this. It's just something a bit different. A nice texture. I'm going to have some little strips of that, I think. Okay. Pardon me. So that's some of that. Let's have a look. Right, and I will stick that on with my 3D gel just to be sure. I'm sure it would be fine with a thinner gel, but just to be safe, I will use that one. The one I'm using is a gloss, so ideally I don't want to get too much of it elsewhere on my work, just because I don't like that kind of glossy little bits that show through. but it's fine to use. Only a little bit needed. It's very light. I just thought to be sure, because it's a strange texture, I would use a 3D gel. I'm remembering the spine, so I said it gets rounder towards the middle. I try and avoid anything too much going near there, just to make it easier for the book to shut, and also things will sort of knock against each other and you can end up sort of damaging like images, ephemera, that sort of thing. So I try to avoid right into the center. Okay, so let's fit that. Let's get some of this paper. Oops, forgot they were there. I'll use a different paper there actually. So these were the scraps from my travel paper. Let's use some of those. It's a bit bottom heavy, so I need something to bounce. Maybe I'll just leave the cork on its own there, and I'll move my paper up here for the top bit. Do just something simple there. Yeah, I think that looks better. So let's move that one up there. That's better. Just want to create bounce a bit more. Otherwise, if we have everything here, the eyes are just going to look at this bit and not pay any attention to anything else we've done up there that's nice. Oops, try not to cut your clothing. Nearly had a big hole in my top then. Got the scissors stuck. So I'm just playing around with these strips I've got. Maybe make a thinner strip. And we'll distress this a little bit so it looks a bit more natural. Okay, I think that's a good base. We could maybe do something up there later as well. You don't want too many different things going on, or you don't know where to look at a piece then. It gets a bit confusing on the eyes. Right, I'll just take an old pair of scissors, just run those along the edges just to distress my paper a little bit. So this is going to form the base for the kind of imagery I want to add. You get little tears, that doesn't matter, it actually looks quite good. I would use a blunt pair of scissors, you know, don't use your best scissors to do this, or you can get a distress tool, which I have got somewhere, but I don't know what I've done with mine. It's gone lost into the mounds of mess. Okay, and you could ink those. You could run an ink over the edge or use a blending tool. I think on this occasion I quite like that little pop of white, so I'm going to leave that as is. Now I need some chipboard scraps or grey board scraps, whatever you've got from your packaging. Are really great to use to layer stuff up. So I've got a piece here, and I'm going to use that to stick stick under my papers to raise them up, being careful not to go too high. As we've said, this is a flat journal, so we don't want to make it too big. So I'm going to have that one that way. So I've just got some of that. This is some light board scraps, so like beer mat material. Stick that on with some of my 3D gel, and then that's giving us a little bit of height in there. Need a little bit more under that one. I think I'm getting more on my finger than I'm getting on the light board there. There we go. That was a bit messy. Let me just get a baby wipe. Oh. Okay, making a right old mess of myself. Right, now where's that bit? That can just go on flat. I want to be very conscious of how big I'm making it. My book is starting to get very fat now. And the little yellow bit. Okay, so that's a nice little cluster there. I'm going to put these on. I'm going to put chipboard on the back of these because it's awkward and we've got that gap in the middle. So this will help a little bit. Okay, and I don't need it on this one because that's going to sit on top. Right, and then finally this little cluster up here. So I want, oops, sorry, I keep forgetting about that charger cable. Need to bounce everywhere. Actually, let's lift that up a sec. Let's have the other one at the bottom because that one's prettier. Now this one. Don't want it to go too close to the edge. Just again to make it easy to close my book. Okay, so there's some little clusters. Just shut that for a minute. Right, let's have a look at those images. So I've got these first I could use to start my layer. It's quite a slow drying gel. It fully dries. I would leave it overnight. The immediate contact, it gives enough contact to, you know, it's not going to start falling off. But yes, you can move it around a bit, which is the reason I like it. That's why I hate things like glue guns and stuff, because kind of or tape, once you put it on, that's it really, isn't it? You get one chance. But this, you can move that around, look, for quite a while. It'll hold there if I don't touch it, but yeah, you get a chance to move things around, which I like because I'm quite indecisive. I change my mind. Okay, so I'm going to choose some images from this sheet. I'll cut these out. That one's quite nice. So this sheet again that I'm using is Vintage Day by AB Studio. It's from the new collection of the fussy cutting sheets, but we also have the sheets available separately. Full of lovely vintage images. Let's choose another one. What's that one? Let's have that one. Okay, so I've got some images here I'm going to add to those little clusters I've already done. Yeah, it's a great one. I really do. I change my mind a lot. So you could probably get a good 5 to 10 minutes time to move stuff around. But once this is dry, it's very strong. There is a stronger gel called Heavy Body Gel that Prima do, which is very, very thick. But I personally tend to only use that for very awkward shapes or big, you know, long or big pieces or awkward shapes like a round shape. Otherwise I tend to use the 3D gel for most things. And Fabrica Decoru also do a very good 3D gel. The only difference personally I would say is the Fabrica one dries quicker. You still get that time to move it, but as in the overall complete dry time, it's a bit quicker. And it's not quite as good for stenciling. It doesn't hold the body as well for that, for exact shaping. So whereas 3D gel, you can put that through a stencil and it works quite nicely. So that's the main differences, but I use both. In terms of adhesive, as an adhesive, both work very nicely. And if I was doing something where it was vital, something dried fully before I could carry on, then I would probably go for the Fabrica in that case. But overall, Prima is probably my favourite. But you know, the price points are very different, so that's for you to decide. Okay, I'm gonna have that one there. So it's like a little book cover. This is a book cover too, and then this one's like a little photo cluster, photo mats. Actually looks like stamps underneath. I think it's like vintage photos with some paper on the top, or the back of a photo maybe. Ooh. Just cutting out, that's why I've gone very quiet. The tongue is sticking out as well. There we go, so that's like little, thanks Ali. It's coming together now, so hopefully you can see the idea of the background. You know, it's working better now, I think. Hopefully you'll agree. So you have to have a bit of an open mind when you do a background a lot of the time, that it will come together in the end, and we can always go over bits at the end if we decide something doesn't quite work. Right, so let's have a look at these sheets now. So I've got these. I've also got this. I don't think I showed you this before. These are the new AB Studio printed chipboards. So we have a lot of their chipboards and grey boards already, but these ones have actual images printed on them. So I think that's gonna, one of these is gonna be my main focus, I think, for this piece. I really like this one of the two ladies, and they are textured. You can feel that. I'm guessing that it's laser printed, like etched onto it, like burnt into the chipboard, I'm guessing. I don't know. So I was thinking this maybe. There's some beautiful images in here though. Really lovely. I think I'll be getting a lot of those. I'll have to order some more. Maybe we could have the word as well, vintage, in there. Okay, so I'm not going to use this one because I've got people already. So I'll turn to the tracing papers, sorry, or the vellums. Okay, let's see. So I've got wings. I don't think I want to use the wings today. We'll use this sheet. So we could have, actually I'm just going to wipe my hand because I'm a little bit sticky. I don't want to get stuck to the paper. As I don't want to tear it out. I don't want to break my finger over. Okay, that's a bit better. Right, so let's open this one. So I'll just show you the acetate so you can see it properly, how they look away from that background, because it's probably a bit confusing. It probably looks just like a white printed piece of paper. Hi Julie. So this is actually how they look. So it's clear, really cool, going to be really useful. And just so you can see the images better. So they're not white, that is how it looks. So really cool, so you could see everything underneath. So I'm going to use the vellum. With both of these you need to be careful with heat. You'll make them curl and burn, especially the acetate could burn. This vellum is a little bit tricky to use, so it's important that you glue edge to edge, as when you leave it, it's going to curl up wherever the glue isn't. So that's something to consider. I like to use a thin gel medium to stick mine down, so something really sticky. You can use tape, but it is semi-translucent, so you will see the tape marks. Okay, so I'm thinking to have some of this popping out from somewhere. Or we could use it. Hamburg said that corner needed something. Maybe we could use that up there actually. So let's do that. So I will bring back the gesso. No, I want to go for a proper gel this time, just to be sure. Have I got any left in this pot? Let's have a look. So this is soft matte gel. So I want a matte again. I don't want a gloss finish. We have the same in Fabrica. It's called medium acrylic matte. So that does the same job. There's a tiny bit left, is there? I think just enough to do this. So this is a much thinner, you'll see, than the 3D gel. So this is very liquid, so great for art journaling. Okay, so we're going to spread completely to the edge so that we don't get it curling up. And we want something that's clear, so it's going to dry clear, so we're not colouring the, see how it's curling? We don't want to colour the vellum, well at this point I don't anyway, see it's very awkward, but it looks good. Okay, so then we need to, I go over it as well. And then if it's really being quite stubborn, you can put something over the, on top of it to weigh it down. But it just looks really nice. add something different, nice texture, different to normal regular paper, and you can see through it. So can you see the colours of my page coming through? So it's just something different. You do have to be a bit patient with it though. Okay. Go. So it gets a nice crispy texture. It's really nice. I like it. You just have to be very patient. Okay, so there's a bit of that. That's fixed that corner that wasn't looking quite right. Hello, Hetty. You want a dried flower next to the chipboard? Yeah, that would look nice. The problem is that I need to keep my page flat. So if I'm going to add a flower, it would need to be a flat flower. Okay, so let's stick this down. I really like that picture. It's very pretty. So I'll use some 3D gel. Not too much. They're very light. Again, they're chipboards. I need to put something under here where my page is curved a little bit. It's not sitting quite flat. So I get some of that chipboard again, just to sit under there so it sits better. Yeah, that sits a bit better. Hello, Showcase Frenchies. You're joining with your page name there. Don't know your actual name, sorry. If you want to say hi, then please do introduce yourself. Okay, where should we have the word? So I think I'd like it on the opposite page, just to tie the two pages together so they're not sort of seen as two separate pages. I'm going to have that there. Seeing how that's going to sit. Yeah, that's fine. So remember, these are chipboards, so don't be too brutal with them. Okay, so it's looking good. We just need finishing touches now. So I mentioned about some stamping. I think I'd like to do that. Now I could do oxide. We've got to remember I have a lot of glues, I have paints and everything going on here. So oxides are water reactive. They will keep reacting unless you seal them. So I'm going to use an archival ink in this occasion. Now I've got some new stamps actually. All in Create ones. I think I'll use one of these. So this is number 219. This is the small stamps. So these are A6, I think. Yep. I'll get confused with my A4s, A5. I have to think about that. Now I haven't used this yet, so it does need priming. So what to do, if I just move my book out the way a second. So what you want to do is ink it, let the ink dry. I've also not used these inks before, so I'm not sure how they're going to work on here. I would normally stamp All in Create with my VersaFine Clair, just because it's a very juicy ink and good for detail. So I'm not sure how it's going to work. We'll find out. Let's use that paper. I can use it for something else then. So this is going to be my first stamp, which isn't going to be perfect because I've just primed the stamp. Oh, that came out quite well. We'll see how it's not perfect because it's a new stamp. You get kind of greasy residue. So we'll leave that ink on there and then we'll ink it again. And it should work better this time. Let's see. And I'm not using my regular inks to do this, so yeah, better. Still not quite perfect, but much better, you can see. So yeah, I would really recommend VersaFine with these stamps, but I think it's just more that it's new. It needs a bit of prep to get that sticky residue off. Oop. Okay, this will work well enough. Whoops, just to get a bit of detail. So anywhere now that we didn't like the paint, how it looked, this is where we can just use a stamp to add some details over the top. And I don't use a block so that I can bend it to where I want it. We don't have to re-ink every time either. Let's move this around. The cat's back again. That cat, honestly, it's my own fault. I can't help it. I like animals, and he comes and he's cute. But yeah, he is certainly a needy cat, and it's not even my cat. Ah, thank you, Hetty. Yeah, just keep going with art journaling until you're happy. Start off with a layer until you're happy. Using a colour scheme helps, so if you don't like something, at least it's in the same colour scheme, if that makes sense. So I've used all kind of browns, muted greens, that kind of cream colours, and I don't clean that ink off my stamp. The only time I would clean the ink off would be if I was using oxides, because they're dye and pigment fusion, and then I wanted to use a different kind of ink so that the inks didn't contaminate each other. Otherwise I'd leave that on because it just helps the ink go on better and stamp better next time. Okay, do I want any little finishing touches? Let's see what else I've got here. Maybe I've got these pretty leaves. I could add a couple of those maybe, and then that will finish it. I think I've got a title. I like to always have a word or a title, an image. I've got my layers. Oops, that one got a bit bashed. That's fine. Let's just pull them all off so they look the same. Little like maple leaves. So I could have one and there, and one coming from these ladies somewhere. Yep, and then one on the little cluster up here. And I think I'll finish with some splatters and then it's done. So using the 3D gel again. Does anyone have any questions about anything I've used or anything like that before we finish here today? So I think everything apart from these little leaves that I'm using now, let me double check, is available in the store. So thompsonscraftsupplies.com. We do ship internationally. The only difference to any kind of deliveries at the minute is we're only picking once a week, or trying to pick once a week. Basically is once a week unless the orders get a bit out of hand, then we go again. And two, I can't book couriers at the moment, so parcels internationally I would advise to keep under 2 kilograms, because that's the max for a small parcel, so it will keep your cost lower. So just have a think about your weights. I can always pick an order and get you a quote, that's not a problem, but yeah, it will help you keep the cost down a bit if you keep it under 2 kilograms at the minute. And I said before, I have had a problem getting my boxes, so I'm packing as much as I can. You might get things come packaged slightly different to normal. I've packed as much as I possibly can at the moment, and now I'm just holding on. I'm just trying to find that umber colour to do some splatters. I don't know, but I really think I should get it back in. It's not the cheapest one, but it is fab because it has different papers. So you've got the craft that I was working on today, you've got this white textured one, you've got Hessian it's a really good one to have to explore textures. There's all different, you know, cloths and papers, so you get different looks and feels. So I think I will get this back in because it's the one I use a lot, you know, and if I'm demoing it all the time and people are liking it, it makes sense to have it, doesn't it? Right, so I've just got some of that umber, the liquid acrylic I used before, to do some splatters. I want to cover up some parts of my work, so I don't want those ladies to get splattered. So I've just watered it down a little bit. I'm just using a paintbrush and tapping with my finger to get some splatters. If you're working in a small space near walls, it's a good idea to do this inside a box. So you get dirty walls. Okay, let me move it a little bit. Okay, that's that side done. Okay, that's it. We're done. So here's my vintagey feel page. We have used different paints. We used Impastos by Finnabair. We have used liquid acrylics by Finnabair. And then we used our Dina Wakley acrylic paints as well to get our background, along with a 13 art stencil mixed with impasto and modelling paste. We then used some AB Studio rice papers. I've used different AB papers layered up with some 13 Arts travel papers just to create these little clusters, and finally added the AB Studio printed chipboards and just some leaves from my stash, and finished with some splatters of liquid acrylics. Yes, I do. I use clear gesso. Sorry, let me take it down to read it properly. I use clear gesso on my pages first, and I did today, which actually really helped. So I put the clear gesso on this page, and on the reverse of my page I sprayed just with water to help the curling. So let me show you the page up close. Oh, you're welcome, and glad that you like it. Thank you, ladies. Any other questions, do drop them here on the video. I'll be able to answer them after. Or feel free to drop me a message, and hope you like this page, and check out the store at thompsonscraftsupplies.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again. Bye bye.